I have taken you in my arms and I love you. I prefer you to my life itself. For the present life is nothing, and my most ardent dream is to spend it with you in such a way that we may be assured of not being separated in the life reserved for us. The first time I met Paul, I had driven across the country to go to California and work at a summer camp that Paul was running. I had worked for 3 days with students, and so I was exhausted. And so I was in bed, and there was this knock on my door, and I rolled out of bed, and I had messy hair and my glasses and old sweats, and I opened the door, and there was Paul standing with his arms crossed, leaning against the railing. And he just had this smile that lit up his face. Paul loved doing camp ministry. He just knew that God had put a passion in his heart for bringing people to Christ through nature and the outdoors. That first moment that I saw Paul, I knew that there was love at first sight. At the end of the summer, he ended up taking me out to Yosemite, and we climbed Sentinel Dome. Right as the stars were just starting to come out, he got down on his knee and he said, "Anne, Gershana Brindle, I want to spend the rest of my life loving you. Will you marry me?" And we had 7 amazing years together. When Paul and I first got married, we needed to pay off student loans to be able to start our family on the right foot. We were talking, and it was like, what about truck driving? I hear that truck drivers make good money. It was such a foreign idea to me, but at the same time, I was excited to have all this alone time with my husband. It was really an amazing time of what we called our 2-year honeymoon. Spending time dreaming, planning our life together. The babies didn't come quickly, and that was our great desire. Finally, we did get pregnant, and I lost the baby. And then a few months later, I got pregnant again, and almost immediately lost the second baby. That became our period of time of just growing closer to each other and suffering together. Things were not working for us as far as being able to start a family. And so we decided to go off the road, and within a week we got a phone call about a child that needed a home. Paul ended up being offered a job at Camp Gray in Wisconsin, and our first full day at camp, I found out that I was pregnant with our second son, Damien. We ended up having 3 children during that time period. So God just all of a sudden blessed us with this abundance. We decided it was time to move closer to family, and so we ended up moving to Tennessee. My grandparents had a house that hadn't been lived in years that was falling apart. And so Paul just went to work starting to build our house for us.
What's the date, Paul?
Today is Christmas.
Is it Christmas?
And
She was asking for everybody.
everybody's gonna be up soon. Well, let's go back to sleep, huh?
There you go.
Daddy.
2 days before Christmas of 2014, when I was pregnant with our son, Paul Blaze, we found out that Paul was sick. They did an X-ray of his chest and they found innumerable tumors. Paul had testicular cancer and it had metastasized to his lungs. Paul went in and had surgery, and by the next day he was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
They did a full body scan and saw that he had tumors in his brain as well. We started chemo, but in the back of my mind I was like, Paul's the strongest person I know. God's just gonna be like, okay, Paul Coakley, how much do you really love me? How much can I test you? And then he's gonna pull us back from that cliff.
Joseph, glorify thy servant, Blessed Margaret, by granting the favor we so ardently desire, Paul's complete healing.
During those chemo treatments, he was so weak and so tired that he was offering it up for anyone and everything. People were contacting us from literally all over the world saying that they were praying for Paul and telling stories of how they were inspired by Paul. They really gave me strength to keep walking back into that room. It was so hard seeing the strongest man I had ever known in pain like that and knowing that he was just offering it up.
Holy God, Holy Mighty One.
January 20th, my dad's birthday. The doctors examined his eyes. They said it was time to take him off the medications that he was on. And suddenly, I felt him lifting up and lifting his arms off the bed. And then he just fell back. He had lifted up his arms and run to the arms of our Lord. And I said, Lord, there are thousands of people all over the world praying for a miracle. This is your chance to show how powerful you are. You can raise Paul just like you rose Lazarus. And as soon as I spoke those words out loud, I laughed. And I said to myself, Lazarus never saw the beatific vision because the gates of heaven haven't been opened. Why would I take that away from Paul? Why would I bring him back to this toil when he's seeing you in all your glory? I hadn't hardly slept in 2 weeks, and I was so physically and mentally exhausted. And I just broke down. I went to bed that night holding Paul's wedding ring.
Hug Mama.
Daddy's.
That is Daddy's.
Yeah.
Daddy's necklace, Daddy's ring.
Daddy's ring.
Yeah.
Daddy's ring. I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. It's okay. Mommy just misses Daddy. Mommy misses Daddy.
I wanted my husband back. There was nothing that I could do in my power to bring him back. I felt like an amputee victim. And how there's a phantom limb. I could feel what it felt like to have Paul holding my hand and to have his arm around me. I didn't want to have to hurt the way I was hurting. I didn't want to have to live without Paul. And I didn't know how I was going to do it either. Somehow, miraculously, I made it through those next several days. And we had the most beautiful funeral. There was a solemnness and a sadness, but a joy that overcame the sadness because we knew that Paul had lived well and he had had a good and happy death. They loaded the casket that my brothers had built onto the back of the tractor. There's a friend shooting off streamers. And Paul's brothers dressed up in ridiculous costumes because that's who they are. They're joyful and fun and ridiculous. just like Paul was. And it was the most beautiful and joyful celebration of life that I had ever seen. The priest came over and blessed the house that he had been building for the kids and I. And people took off their coats and started picking up hammers and just working on the house in the areas that needed it. And it was just one of those moments where you feel so engulfed in love. And I just thought, we're gonna be together eventually. We have the opportunity to be there together if we just seize that opportunity. And I was able to rest, knowing that he is rested in Christ, and Christ was holding me.
Oh, you're making homemade pie? Why don't you keep it on your plate? Let's see. Here, put it up here, and then you can do it right on the edge there.
I thought that I wanted heaven before Paul died, but the reality of how desperately I wanted heaven, how desperately I needed God, was so much more clear after losing Paul. I would give anything to have Paul here with us, but I'm happy that he is where he is, and I'm hopeful that we will be together again. The pain will always be there of Paul's presence not being there, but it helps remind me that everything in this life is fleeting. All that matters is that I am striving for heaven, that I'm allowing Christ to love me and allowing myself to grow closer to him. Even in the difficult days of being exhausted and being a single parent, God will always be with me during that. I have 4 little kids that need my attention all day long. And so that's my vocation now, is just to love Christ through my children. There is so much beauty in this world. And yes, some of it is gone because Paul's not here with me. But if I keep trying my best, God will reward that, and we'll all be together.